So welcome back, everybody, here to the Postgame Pod on the Auburn Undercover podcast. Nathan King here with Jason Caldwell here at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center in Baton Rouge. Fun trip this week. Went out to Mobile to the Senior Bowl. Decided to pop on over to LSU to see number one Auburn back in action. Jason, Auburn takes this one 87-74. If you just looked at the score, you would say, all right, Auburn gets a double-digit win. But this is a really, really eventful game for Auburn, going all the way to the first possession. The first two possessions that featured 9 offensive rebounds. Auburn starts 0 of 9 from the floor. But the MVP for Auburn in this game, Jason, we see him kind of getting back to form after the injury. Janai Broome, 26 points in this game, 11 off. He would have had a double-double just with offensive rebounds. Right. He made the difference for Auburn down the stretch.
He did, and it was a struggle early on. 3 for 14 from the floor in the first half. He had the rebounds, did those things. It looked like the second half he trusted that ankle a little bit more. He was kind of playing one-legged a little bit in the first half. Second half, he used that body, though, and he got down low and he got in position, and LSU just could not handle him. And I thought Auburn's size had a big impact. And it wasn't necessarily the length, but the size of the bodies. We saw Turtle Hudson make some big plays, but Chaney Johnson, Dylan Caldwell. LSU has length, and they've got athleticism, but Auburn's size really bothered them. And I thought this was almost like a Big East game. Auburn turned them over, got a bunch of offensive rebounds, and played in the paint. 40 paint points. I mean, that was the difference in tonight.
Yeah, it's funny. 40 paint points for Auburn, and yet they shoot really poorly. I don't have the numbers exactly in front of me, but at the rim they did not shoot well. I know they only made 9 2-point shots in the second half, and so even with Broome being as effective as he was, that's what Bruce Pearl talked about post-game, trying to get better at that. Let's talk about some of the standout players here. Turtle Hudson, 7 points. That's a season high for him. This is a guy that we saw him make a big impact when Auburn won at Georgia. He was on the floor for Auburn with less than 5 minutes to go. It's not like Auburn was up by 20. I mean, they had a comfortable lead, but he continues to show that with his preparation this season, he's able to do some really good things for them on the floor. Had a big three-pointer as well when they were trying to pull away in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, him and Chaney Johnson both made a couple of big shots there for this team. But again, it's just those plays. Grab a couple of rebounds, do those things, but a couple of baskets when Auburn really struggling offensively. Had a couple of lay-ins, and those are the kind of minutes and the kind of points you look at. Whether it's Chris Moore coming off the bench too and doing things. That's what you have to do when you play in this league right now, because it is a grind. This is a grind for this team. LSU's a team you look up and you look at the record and go, shoe in, and man, they made some shots, but the turnovers were the difference because they shot the ball really well. It's much better than they've been shooting the ball this season.
Yeah, this team was dead last in the SEC in 3-point percentage. They end up shooting in this game. Let me see if I can find it here. I'm not good. 8 of 22. So they cooled off a little bit, but still shot pretty well from downtown. A couple guys in this game, Jason. One player for them, Damian Collins, made only his 3rd three-pointer of the entire season. Yeah. Bailey for LSU, only his 10th three-pointer. So you could tell the scouting report, you could see Auburn just sagging off. They were like, look, if you're going to beat us by shooting it well, so be it. LSU wasn't able to keep it up over the course of the game, but one thing that did help Auburn come out of that rut at the beginning of the game, Auburn went on a 17-2 run. Their steals. I mean, they tied their season high for steals in the first half alone with 11, finished with 15 steals in the game. We're able to kind of outshine LSU in that regard. But another season high, Jason, you mentioned it for a second, 25 offensive rebounds. That's an area LSU has struggled with, but it's an area Auburn has also not been perfect in. They really took advantage of that tonight.
I thought there was the one word, if I think about the game tonight, the one word for me is aggressive. Yeah. They were aggressive on the boards, and they were aggressive defensively. We saw them running, trapping, doing some things that we haven't seen Auburn do a bunch of. Yeah. They wanted to get the ball out of the hands of those guards for LSU, and they did that. And they created some turnovers. They did some good things. And so, when you start talking about, what you can do from a standpoint of how do you impact the game when you're not shooting the ball well. Auburn did not shoot it extremely well. You impacted by being the most aggressive team, the most physical team, and that was Auburn tonight.
I mean, Cam Carter, he's got to be after this game. Surely he's still the leading scorer in SEC play. He goes for 24 tonight. But as Bruce Pearl said, look, they wanted to get the ball in their hands, coming aggressively around those screens, trying to just disrupt action on the perimeter. We saw them do a good job with that. Miles Kelly continues to be road game. Miles Kelly, he had 2 3-pointers in the first half that I thought helped pull Auburn out of LSU was up 6-0. But it's interesting to hear Matt McMahon after the game. He said that was fool's gold. He was like, we weren't able to compete with the athleticism of this team. And another thing McMahon said after the game was he thought Auburn showed its experience when this was suddenly you'd look up and it's like, oh, this is a 5 or 6 point game with 7 or 8 minutes. But Auburn never let LSU get the last laugh. They always had a response down the stretch, and that's that's why Auburn has been, it's been good that Auburn has been so experienced this year.
That's the veteran. That's the experienced team. But we talked about this. We talked about it coming into this, and I mentioned it kind of. This is a first-round NCAA tournament vibe, and it was that way early on, and it felt like kind of sleepwalking a little bit. Now Auburn didn't sleepwalk on the boards, but they weren't finishing shots. They weren't doing those things. Miles Kelly, a couple of big shots early on, got Auburn rolling. Chad Baker-Mazar got to the free throw line. Even though he missed a couple, which was very strange to see. Yeah. But they got involved in the game and didn't let LSU take off and run. And once they did that, they settled the game in. Then it was just a matter of how Auburn would finish this game, because you felt like they were in control, even when it got down to 5. This is a team that felt like, we're good, and they were.
Yeah, Baker-Mazar missed a couple. Pettiford missed one. So obviously, uncharacteristic for them. Janai was 6 of 7 at the line. I thought in a game where he was drawing a lot of contact on the inside, that was really important. Jason, as they move forward now to Ole Miss on Saturday, Bruce Pearl said it after the game. He said, look, coming off of Tennessee, their focus is, they've got to keep improving. This is a team that obviously has, so many accomplishments so far, but they still have all of their goals ahead of them that they have to go out and get. Bruce Pearl mentioned it, shooting better on the inside, taking advantage of opportunities. For a long point in the game, they had so many offensive rebounds, but they had very few second chance points. Correct. And so, again, this Auburn team remains, and they're 19-1. They've only started 19-1 4 other times in program history, so a great 20-game start for them. But they remain, number one, they remain with a great record, but also remain a lot of things on the table they want to get better at.
Yeah, and the difficulty now is that it's fairly late on a Wednesday night. Yeah, you turn around, fly back to Auburn, practice tomorrow, leave really early on Friday because you play at 1 o'clock Saturday. That's a quick turnaround. Great. It's a basketball team that's a little worn down. You played Tennessee last week in that physical game, and then you have to go on the road, and you got to go on the road again. This is where this depth could pay off, and we may see even more of a rotation. There's a lot of offensive, defensive rotation in the second half that we don't normally see out of Auburn. It wasn't the line change. It was offense, defense, let's go back and forth. I thought they did a great job of doing that. I won't be surprised if we see more of that at Ole Miss.
Yeah, it shouldn't be overlooked. We talked about, Turtle Hudson, but Chris Moore, 4 offensive rebounds in this game. Chaney Johnson, I was joking with Ferg at the end of the game, but a Turtle Hudson dagger would definitely be something, but Chaney Johnson ends up being the one to deliver it. It shouldn't be overlooked that Auburn had that depth payoff in this game, even though, LSU was a little bit overmatched and Ibram had a great game. Like Jason said, they are going to have to rely on that now as the grind of the league continues. 87-74, Auburn takes down LSU here in Baton Rouge. Thank you guys so much for joining us on the Postgame Pod. For Jason Caldwell, I'm Nathan King. We'll talk to y'all soon.